From slipping on a wet floor to parties that get out of hand, there are endless reasons why a short-term rental guest might sue you. I was a personal injury attorney, and in order for me to get money out of you or your insurance company, the number one way I would attack you is through negligence as a property owner. There was a specific list of 4 items that I had to check off in order to increase my chances of winning, and I won a lot. The most obvious thing I check first is damages. In other words, if the only thing that happened is that the guest got upset or scared, no lawsuit. After all, 1-star reviews aren't admissible in court. But if someone twisted their ankle going down icy stairs, damages? Yes, but not much. Someone was seriously injured or died? Check mark. The amount of the damages will almost always affect the recovery and how it affects your asset protection. But damages alone won't win the lawsuit. I also had to check for causation, which means what you did had to be the direct cause of those damages. For example, there's an ice storm, and you don't hire anybody to come out and clear off the ice or the snow. And as a result of that, someone's coming down those stairs, slips, falls, and breaks their leg. Causation? Probably, but what if they already had a bum leg or some other pre-existing condition? Not so clear. Another example would be a teenager who was shot and killed at a party at an Airbnb in California. What happened was an Airbnb was rented, and the person who rented out the Airbnb threw a party for over 150 to 200 people. And during the process of that party, a fight broke out, a gunshot rang out, and a young man ended up dead. It turns out that this community required all Airbnb hosts to live on site at the property in order to rent out their property. But this particular owner of the property didn't even live in California. Not only that, the owner apparently didn't even have a permit in order to actually legally operate the Airbnb in that particular city. So in this case, had the owner done everything they were supposed to do, would the accident still have taken place and the young man ended up dead? Probably not. Check mark. But even if there are damages and causation, it doesn't mean it's case closed. Now I start looking to see how much common sense you have as an investor. This is legal talk for the term duty. If you own a short-term rental, you have a duty to provide a safe environment for all of your guests. If you fail to keep up with your property or provide reasonable care in the maintenance of your property, the premises must be maintained and kept under a reasonable person standard. And if you fail to meet this standard, you have breached your duty. If someone looks at you and says, well, I guess common sense isn't so common, then there's a good chance you did something that a reasonable person wouldn't have done. For example, a Florida State student died while taking a shower in Brazil. Sebastian Mejia was taking a shower at a Rio de Janeiro Airbnb. When he turned it on, he died from carbon monoxide poisoning. Why? Because the pipes were not hooked up properly, and as a result of that, the hot water heater sprayed carbon monoxide throughout the entire shower, and this poor young man died. A reasonable person would know that gas lines need to be installed properly and looked after with reasonable care. Check mark. But even if it is your fault, and even if someone does get hurt, and even if it's because you are lazy, I still have to prove that you broke some law or violated some contract. And this is a fancy lawyer talk term known for breach. An absolutely heart-wrenching example of this is when a Florida toddler died at an Airbnb in Florida from a drug overdose. Prior to the family staying at the rental, the previous guests were using an enormous amount of drugs. They were using everything from weed to cocaine, but the ultimate cause of death for this poor child was the use of fentanyl. The use and possession of illegal drugs at an Airbnb is an obvious breach of the law. Check mark. But what about situations where you did nothing wrong? Can you still be sued because something bad happened? Of course, anyone might sue you at any time. So that's why I switched sides and I became an asset protection lawyer. And if you'd like to know one of the best ways to shield your assets, create privacy, and make sure you don't become the victim of a lawsuit, check out this video where I give you a step-by-step guide how to protect your short-term rental.